Hi, my name is Haley McCown, and I'm in a group with Megan Mary and Serenity Pruitt. Today, we're going to be talking about the 10 most haunted places in the world, counting down from 10 to 1. Hope you enjoy. Number 10 is the Stanley Hotel in Etz Park, Colorado. This is the place that inspired Stephen King's The Shining. It was constructed in 1907 and began coordinating business in 1909. Some things that make this place really scary is that Mr. Stanley has been reported to be standing behind employees, and people will hear music playing in the music room and then go to check it, and there will be no one there. It also, in room 217, where Stephen King did in fact stay at the Stanley Hotel to inspire The Shining, was a housekeeper named Elizabeth Wilson was electrocuted. She didn't die, but short after, there were reports of hauntings. More paranormal things that happen in the hotel are people's things being unpacked, things moved unexpectedly, children laughing, which is something that Stephen King reported whenever he stayed there, children laughing in the hallway next to his room, and also lights turning on and off, which is usually a main factor in hauntings. Number 9 is the Edinburgh Castle in Edinburgh, Scotland. This was known as the most haunted place in Scotland, and parts of it are 900 years old. Some of the things that make it really scary are people have seen phantom pipers, headless drummers, spirits of French and colonial prisoners, and even ghosts of dogs in the pet cemetery. A study was conducted with people who have never been to this place, and they were reported to have seen things such as these: shadowy figures, temperature drops, feelings of being watched, unseen presences touching their faces, and people feeling like they're being tugged by the arms or legs. Many of these phenomenons happen in the same places as people who do know where these sightings are, and those people that volunteered to experience these things felt the same things in the same places. One volunteer, however, was locked in a vault overnight, and immediately as they were locked in, had reported hearing increasing heavy breathing coming from the corner of the room and a flash of light, but they were too scared to investigate it. Number 8 is the catacombs, the Paris Catacombs in Paris, France. This is home to over 6 million bodies underground into the quarries from 1780s to 1814. People buried bodies, bones, and they were just left there to rot. In the 18th century, cemeteries were running out of room, so they buried these bodies in there not correctly, so they would just basically throw the bodies in there, and then as Paris started to flood, these bodies would surface in different towns. There's about 200 miles of tunnels in the streets of Paris, so the catacombs are about 200 miles long. Some things that make it scary are workers arranged the remains to look in a decorative pattern, so they'd put them in different things to scare the people who went in to discover them. There's people who actually live in the catacombs, which is pretty frightening considering that's where dead bodies are. I kind of feel like that's also disrespectful, but they live there. Some of these people are dwellers who liked being down there, and farmers. These people didn't really want to give out any information on the catacombs or as to what they've seen or anything. There's also roamers who find the underground water bodies, and they swim in them for fun. So they enjoy swimming in these bodies of nasty water filled with bones. Another thing that's pretty scary about the catacombs is in 2004, police reported to have found an abandoned part of the tunnel that contained a cinema, a working restaurant, a cell phone service, and power lines. There was also creepy photos taken of the officers who were under there in the catacombs, And there was also a note left on the table in a restaurant down there in the catacombs that said, "Do not try to find us." So that's pretty frightening. Number 7 is the RMS Queen Mary in Long Beach, California. One of the things that really is frightening about this is there are a lot of people said to have haunted the Queen Mary, or still do to this day. One of these includes a man in the engine room. He was locked in there after a fire had erupted. There's also a girl who haunts the pool area after she was reportedly have drowned. And one of the most sought after rooms, room B340, is now up for grabs if you want to tour for a small payment of $450 a night. So you can go tour. It includes a Ouija board, cards to talk to the dead, and even rules on the wall of how to speak to Bloody Mary. So for $450 you can go see and stay in B340 of the Queen Mary, which is also a place where a ghost of a man who reportedly had died in there. Number 6 is the Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary in San Francisco, California. This prison was built in 1934 and closed shortly after in 1963. This place is very known for the people that stayed there, especially Al Capone. In cell 14, there was an inmate who was murdered or was found dead the next day after he was reportedly have screamed that a figure with glowing eyes was telling him that he was going to be murdered. And the next day, people came in and found that he was dead. Other stories were said that security guards would hear people screaming or men crying or whistling, and they would be really freaked out by that. And then they would hear clanking in one room that had a closed door that looked as if it was welded shut at one point. Number 5 is the Borley Rectory. This is a Victorian home known as England's most haunted house. This is said by psychic researcher Harry Price. This house was built in 1862 and is home to 2 very strong spirits known as the monk and the nun, which did not give names when I researched this. So these 2 people were said to have been lovers back whenever they were still alive. Once they were found to be lovers, the monk was hung and the nun was walled up. I'm not really sure what walled up means, but that is what they have said that happened to her, was she was walled up. Harry Price was also included in a seance, which he and a group of other people conducted, and a lady named Mary Lair contacted the group and said that she had run away from her convent to be with a man named Henry Waldegrave, who then proceeded to kill her and bury her remains in the cellar, which would be found soon, is what she had told them. And later, whenever one of the owners had a fire after an oil lamp was knocked over, and her remains were in fact found below the cellar. Number 4 is the Myrtles Plantation. What this plantation is most known for is a little slave girl named Chloe. This little girl was, I'm not really sure, but I think she didn't behave as she should have, and her owners did not like it. So they cut off her ear, and she planned to take revenge by poisoning a cake to give to her owners, which after they ate it, they did in fact die. And the one owner that did not eat the cake hung her for what she had done, and she has supposedly come back many times to haunt the plantation, and she has been seen many times. In fact, caught on camera whenever one of the people there was taking a picture for the insurance company, she was caught on camera and in fact proven that that was a picture of a little ghost girl, which was said to be Chloe. Another person that said something about the Myrtles plantation was a housekeeper, stayed there, and she reported feeling little fingers touching her, as if little kids were haunting the house as well, which were probably the kids that were killed who ate the cake. They reportedly touched her on the arms and legs, and you could hear kids playing and laughing, is what also she reported. Number 3 is the Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. The sanatorium opened in 1926 and was used to help people or patients with the outbreak of tuberculosis. This housed hundreds of thousands of people. Many died and many lived. And the people who did die usually happened in the heights of the disease. And those who did die were thrown down in body chutes that led down to railroad tracks so that the bodies could be taken. They threw them down these body chutes so that people wouldn't know that so many people were dying, because it was hundreds at a time. Many people who stayed there reported a little girl running down the 3rd floor, and they've seen a little boy holding a ball, and a hearse dropping off coffins to hold people, which isn't real, but they've seen reports of that. There have been reports that people have seen that. And then also, there was a report of a woman with bleeding wrists. Along with all of that, there have been reports of lights flickering, doors slamming, running water and lights flickering on and off whenever there's no power or water into the building anymore. One of the most talked about stories of this is the room 502, where a nurse committed suicide with a light fixture along with another nurse jumping off of the patio of the same room. Number 2 is the Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This opened in 1929 and was designed to hold 253 prisoners. People thought that solitary confinement was the best thing for prisoners back in this time, so they put them in there, and it eventually drove most of them insane. One of the most famous prisoners there was also Al Capone. He was held in a prison from 1929 to 1930, where he served 8 months and then moved to a different facility, obviously. While he was in jail there, he said that he was haunted by James Clark, who was one of his victims in the St. Valentine's Day murders. There were some gruesome tactics to punishment there, which they would do water bath, which is where they would dip them in ice cold water and then hang them from the walls to dry all night long, whether it be cold or hot. They would also put him in the mad chair and periods of induced starvation. The prison was home to many hauntings where people were killed, such as guards and inmates and people who died of just disease and old age. This place now does hold tours, and they do have a haunted house in the month of October. And number 1 is the Towers of London in London, England. This is a place full of many tortures, executions, and all kinds of gruesome things. It's considered the most haunted place in the world. It's one of the most famous ghostly figures is Anne Boleyn, who was beheaded by King Henry VIII, who was her husband in this time. She was beheaded in the Tower Green in 1536 after she gave birth to a stillborn, which King Henry found out that she also did a lot of treasonous things also, so that's why he had to hang her, even though he was so madly in love with her. Some of them have said that she is seen walking in the halls along with holding her severed head, in her arms. Many visitors have also said they've seen many tortured people, mostly Protestants at the time, because Bloody Mary had killed them as while she was on her reign as queen. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed about learning about the top 10 most haunted places in the world. Thank you.